So my name is Chris Banks. I'm a sergeant in the Army. I've been in the Army for 19 years. I've been to Bosnia, Afghanistan, and I did domestic operations in Toronto, the Arctic, and Quebec. I'm an NCO, so a non-commissioned officer means I hold authority, but I was never commissioned.
Okay.
My journey, I guess, started with my grandfather, who was in the Royal Army Service Corps after the war, and he spent 6 years in Egypt. And when I was a kid, he told me a lot of stories. I joined the Army before 9/11 because I wanted to see if I could do it. It's a challenge. It's one of the hardest jobs ever.
Out there. Yeah.
So I joined my local regiment as infantry, and that's where I've been ever since.
Alright, so what are some of your best memories or
Earliest
memories from joining and working in the Army?
Earliest memories, I joined as an Army cadet when I was 12 years old.
Oh.
Oh wow.
So that's where it started. I wasn't too sure about it. I always thought I wanted to join the Army when I was old enough, but my mom kind of forced me into it, and then it was good. It was really good, and it made my recruit courses in the Army easier because I already knew a lot of the stuff that they were teaching.
Oh.
Yeah.
Next question, so our third question is, what were some of the challenging parts of your experience, and especially focusing coming back after?
Let's see. Challenging parts. Well, it's one of the hardest jobs there is. It really is.
Yeah.
Physically demanding, mentally demanding, emotionally demanding. One of the hardest things for me was when I started a family. I went to Bosnia and Afghanistan as a single dude. I had no commitments at home. I was happy to go. I was happy to be away from home. When I came back, I met my wife. We had a kid, but I was still training and deploying with the military on domestic operations, and that's where the challenges started coming in. I was very fortunate to get Bosnia and Afghanistan done when I was younger, single, not a parent. Now that everything's different, it's strenuous to try and have a good family balance and maintain a commitment in the military.
Right. Alright, so for our next question, what was the most important lesson that has stayed with you throughout your journey, or as your journey is still going on? Something that,
Has stuck with you,
yeah.
and your most important lesson?
Best lesson probably would be people management, leadership. Being in the Army, I've seen some of the best examples of leadership. I've seen some of the worst examples of leadership, and it really teaches you the difference when you're the young guy on the receiving end of good leadership and the receiving end of bad leadership. So over the years, I've taken lessons from good leaders and bad leaders to mold myself into the type of leader that I wanted to be, the type of person who puts their troops first, the kind of person who puts the mission first and puts all their selfish ambitions to the side. There's a balance between how to be a good leader and how to take care of yourself, and that's something that a lot of people forget too. A lot of people want to get into that, I'll put my troops first, I'll put my mission first, and which is awesome. It's awesome. That's the mark of a good leader. But then you have to remember, take time for yourself too. It's not selfish to take time for yourself. It's selfish to put your wants above other people's needs, but it's not selfish to take 5 minutes and say, you know what, I need a break. I need to go talk to somebody. I need to de-stress. I need to cool down. And that's something that the Army as an institution, we consciously know, but it's not something that we put into practice.
Alright, so being in the Army, you've learned, obviously, you've earned quite a bit of respect. So what is one thing that you are the most proud of?
Proud of? I would say probably one of the lives I saved in Bosnia. And it started actually on my birthday. It was actually my 21st birthday in Bosnia in December. And we weren't even supposed to go out on patrol that day. It was supposed to be our day off. Yeah, so we were looking forward to just cleaning the Jeeps and then taking it easy. We heard some, what sounded like gunshots coming from the village behind our camp. So we picked up and we got into the Jeep and we drove out there, and it turns out that it was just, kids, firecrackers, pop cans, and it made it sound like gunshots. So we were already out there, so we stuck around in the village, talked to some people, and then we went, we're already out, let's keep going. And we ended up driving up this mountain road that we hadn't been up before. And we get halfway up this mountain and the road is just washed out with a landslide. And it's not like dirt, it's boulders. So there's 3 of us, like big army dudes in the Jeep. We all get out, and we had a translator. She was laughing at us while we were doing this. But we just took these boulders, which most of them were the size of engine blocks, and we just pushed them off the side of the mountain. And for a few minutes, that was a little bit fun, but then we got the road clear. Okay, so we kept going, and we get to the top of the mountain, and we find this guy up there. He hasn't had a family since the Bosnia War, so he was all there up alone. The road was washed out a couple weeks ago, and he wasn't in any shape to move the boulders by himself. So he had gone through all his food, and we were pretty sure he was about to eat his dog, but we got there just in time. So we had food in the back of the Jeep. We grab it, we give them to him, we give him here's a radio frequency for the camp if you're ever stranded again. Here's a phone number for the camp. Here's phone numbers for the police. Here's phone numbers for the government of Bosnia. If this ever happens again, reach out and we will be here. So that's probably one of the prouder moments of my career.
So moving on to our next question. So what is one lesson you would like to give the younger generation like us about some of your struggles and lessons that you feel are most important?
I would say that the Army is probably more like most careers than people realize. Outside the Army looking in, it would be daunting. It would seem like it's an impossible task for a lot of people, and it requires a lot of personality traits and strength that a lot of people don't have. What a lot of people don't realize is that the Army is a place where you can develop those strengths. It's not just come in and we expect you to know everything and be the person we want you to be. This is a place where people develop. I went into the Army at 16. I didn't know anything. But 19 years later, I would say I got a pretty good grip on a lot of the things I needed to know in the Army and a lot of things I need to know in life. But it's a career that it requires a commitment. You need to be invested in this career, and it's the same with a lot of careers out there. If you half-ass your job, that's what you're going to get out of it. But if you invest yourself in it, you commit, you put the time in, you put the effort in, you go the extra mile, that's where you can turn a job into a career, into something that you can be really good at and really proud about.
How do you feel the Army has influenced the younger generation?
I would say one of the best things about the Army influencing the younger generation is that we don't. One of the things that most people don't realize until they're in that situation that you find yourself in when you're deployed to a third world country is how good we have it here. because of the people who came before us who wore the uniform. I cannot tell you the impact. My first deployment was Bosnia, and I cannot tell you how big of an impact that had on my life. Seeing the other side of the world, and not just geographically, but the other side of like the world where we live in comfort. There's, people here, like, you fear crime and criminals, but you don't fear our neighboring nation, like, knocking down our door in the middle of the night. We don't have those fears that people on the other side of the world do. We have it really good. So yeah, I would say the thing that the youth have learned from us is that there is a world of peace available if people are willing to work for it.
Okay, so our next question is, tell us a little bit about some of the special people you have met on your journey, wherever you were placed. It could still be that you're in touch with them now. It's just some people you've met and who have had an impact throughout your 19 years and more.
I've met so many people in the Army that had an impact on my life. It's really hard to pick out one from all of them. I think that's one of the great things about the Army is like how many people I've actually met going out there, training, deploying, working, liaising. But I think one of the people that stands out the most for me, and I use him as an example when I'm teaching recruits or I'm teaching young soldiers in the Army how to be leaders. His name's Chad. He was my platoon warrant officer when I was in Afghanistan, and he was a fun guy to be with. But this goes back to one of the lessons I taught about leadership. Said about leadership. He brought like that really, really well overseas. One day we had to do a sentry duty, so we spent like all night taking shifts on sentry. And two of us at a time, all our kit on, all our weapons, everything, and we're just watching. So it can be pretty boring, but it's also something that's incredibly important. So I get up for my shift. It's about 3 a.m, and he's standing there, and he's got the satellite phone that our platoon has. So he says to me, he says, "Take the phone. You have 30 minutes. Go call your home." And it was the first time I was able to call home, because it was like 5 and 6, 7 in the afternoon here. It was the first time I was able to call home and speak to my family, because usually my downtime is around midnight, 2 a.m. Toronto time. So I would call, leave voicemails, maybe I'd catch someone, but it wasn't always happening. But he was there, and when my 30 minutes were up, he took the phone back, changed the battery on it, handed it to the next guy, same thing. He stayed up all night doing that. We were on patrol the day before and the day after, but he stayed up all night to make sure that his troops got the opportunity to call home.
So, next question. How does your Army experience affect your life today in a positive way, of course?
So, it has a really big impact on my life. One thing that I get out of my experience is perspective. I have a really good perspective on the way things can work, should work. I'm able to get around like problems by applying the problem-solving techniques that the Army taught. It can be rigid, but it can also be surprisingly flexible. And there's instant recognition from people in the community for what we've done. So.
Okay, so our last and final question is that do you have any final comments you would like to tell the future or younger generations who are interested in joining the Army, or just, I guess, young adults like us who would like to know more about it and more about the perspective that we don't have and something that we don't know?
The term paladin. More modern day veterans will use the word sheepdog, but it means the same thing. It's the person who runs towards danger when everyone else is running away. The person who puts their life on the line for other people. The people who help those who can't help themselves. No matter where we go as a world, as a society, those people are always going to be there, and they're always going to be needed, whether they're appreciated or not. I mean, we do get a lot of appreciation here in Canada, and we're grateful for that. But other people are not so fortunate. These are the people who make the world what it is. There's something that gets tossed around a lot. A lot of people wonder if, at the end of their time, will they have made an impression, made a lasting impact on the world they're leaving behind. A veteran doesn't have to worry about that.
Alright, so we just wanted to say a big thank you for all your time and dedication, obviously in the Army, and also for giving up your time today to come and speak with us and tell us about your journey in the Army.
Your stories, and we are very inspired by you, and we look up to many people like you, and we would like to thank you once again for inspiring us and taking out your time to be with us today.